Yet another live with me, Namita Ramani, entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Above Digital, a digital marketing agency based in Dubai, which I started in the year 2004. We work with small businesses and help them generate leads using social media platforms like Facebook and Google AdWords, and help their revenues thrive using cost-effective online marketing. It was my dream to have an online show, to basically interview amazing, inspiring people during my journey as an entrepreneur. We go through so many ups and downs. I've been through so many ups and downs myself, and those times I would read books. I would listen to different podcasts and different authors and speakers who shared their stories on what went in their lives. What did they do? How did they fall? How did they get up and raise and start walking again? And towards the goal of thriving their business and dream ventures. So this show is my way of giving back to the world, I guess, by sharing the stories of different entrepreneurs and business owners that I have met in my journey of, I think, 13 years now. So welcome everyone, and thank you so much for giving me your time and watching this live show. For all those people who are watching a replay, we would love to hear your feedback as well. For all the people watching live and replay, definitely like and share and love this video if you find the information useful. I would love to also hear your feedback as to how did you find the show, was the content useful, did you learn something, what did you learn? I would love to hear your reviews basically. Today I'm super excited. We have for this interview with Steve Jeffrey. I'm going to introduce Steve in a minute. Before we let's see, Steve. I have like all of these little papers here. So I met Steve a year back, I think. So you guys heard my show on the Cash Flow Club. It's a little hot in here. I'm sorry, I'm sweating a bit, but it'll be fine. We did a session with Arvin, who was part of my Cash Flow Club, who was the leader of my Cash Flow Club. And one of those Cash Flow events, I met Steve Jeffrey, where I came to know that he is the coach with Franklin Covey Academy and is expert in teaching 7 habits. I also run another meetup on meetup.com. It's called the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where we teach the readings from basically the book. Covey says the best way to learn is by teaching. Teach to learn, learn to teach. So we have these private workshops where we meet in our offices or in a cafe, and we pick up one of the chapters of the book and discuss. And thus, basically by discussing, by sharing, by doing the role plays, by listening, you start applying those learnings, and that makes it faster to learn rather than just sit at home and just keep reading the book. So those exercises would help a lot. And I invited Steve in one of the sessions. He came for many sessions, not just one, and made us do some interesting exercises, which I would have never, and shared some interesting content, which only coaches have. So you're going to learn some great stuff from this show. I would recommend you watch it again. Once Steve starts speaking, I mean, he would just mesmerize you with his words. A little introduction about him. Let's see. So Steve is certified by Neuro Leadership Group and the International Coaching Federation as a professional coach, and has completed over 350 hours of coaching with executives and entrepreneurs. He has delivered the full suite of 7 habits of highly effective people over 100 times, and is a certified coach from the Franklin Covey Academy. He has worked with clients like Diva, Do, Etisalat, Johnson & Johnson, Kraft. Oh, there's so many. Abu Dhabi Bank, National Bank of Abu Dhabi, Oracle. I think the list will go on, and you can find more details on his website, I guess. Since completing his master's in leadership and management in 2011, his research led to a particular interest in neuroscience and how we can improve levels of performance by conditioning our behaviors and emotions. Additionally, during this journey, his passion has grown into helping leaders improve their brand by inspiring others through improving their presence and influencing skills. Wow. So today's session, we are going to be talking about a lot of things, and I'm just going to run you through what all we are going to discuss. Apart from going deeper into the 7 habits, Steve is going to share with us how 7 habits apply to business and management and what effect it can have on business performance. He will share with us examples and experiences of implementing the concepts of 7 habits within the workforce and what kind of changes it has shown by sharing other people's experiences. Steve will be sharing with us how just every business or even every employee can apply these habits in their personal and professional life. The most common resistance people and businesses face when trying to adopt the mindset of 7 habits. What he thinks is one of the best habits that every entrepreneur or a business owner must have, and some key actionable things that you can do to start applying these habits, some exercises that he will share with us at the end of the session. Again, I would love to know your feedback, so please share your reviews, your views in the comment section. Do like and share this video. It will be with people you think can benefit from this content. It will be great for this content to reach many. You will hear it when Steve starts speaking. And so before we start the interview, a quick today I don't know if you guys noticed, people who've been watching the show regularly, we've changed the location. I'm not in my office today. We are in the Hamptons Cafe. It's one of my favorite cafes in Dubai. It's on Jumeirah Beach Road. It's beautiful. It's very English American, from LA, Long Jersey. The owner, Mr. Khalid, he's made it with so much love. You can see his dedication, his passion in this cafe, right from the doors to the lights, to the wood that he's used, to the plants, to the cutlery. Even, he's gone in depth. Not a single detail is basically missed from this cafe, and that's what I love about it. The passion behind this gentleman. Hopefully I should get him on interview soon as well and hear his story. So it's a fantastic cafe. The food is lovely. We are not getting paid for having this interview here or whatever I'm sharing. It's just I love it so much. So I hope you guys definitely come here and enjoy this cafe as well. So without further ado, let's start talking with Steve Jeffrey. So Steve, I've done a brief introduction about you. Let's hear about you from you. How did you start it and what are you doing now?
Okay, thanks Namita. First of all, thanks for inviting me to this Facebook Live today. It's really good to sort of share my expertise and sort of serve others in how they can apply such a foundational, fundamental leadership model. I've been in the region now for about 7 years, and since I've been here, I believe that the industry of personal development and sort of improvement and business growth is phenomenal, and it's actually sort of exponential in a way that everybody wants to find some way of getting to beat their sort of competitors and sort of really grow their businesses the best they can. So what I've done over the last 7 years is sort of work with a lot of different companies, finding out what are the performance gaps of those organizations, and found my purpose. And my purpose is really to serve them and to help them sort of inspire their people, because the most critical people, or the most critical thing of an organization is their people.
Absolutely.
And that's so important.
People buy people.
They do. People buy people. It doesn't matter what company you're with, it's the person that really resonates with the other person. It's so critical.
So you love training and coaching, that's all?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of everything. And I these days I like to call it sort of the hybrid development industry. So, it could be coaching, it could be training, it could be mentoring, it could be running just a simple webinar like this. So there are loads of different platforms and loads of different methodologies because we all have a different style of learning. So what we've got to do today is not specialise in one sort of particular way of helping others. We've got to make sure that we have a whole suite and different ways of capturing people from a learning industry, definitely.
Wow. So how did you get into the 7 habits in particular, like becoming an expert with 7 habits?
Well, I actually...
There's a personal story to it, right?
Yeah, there is a little bit, I think. I got, or come in touch with the book probably about 12 years ago now.
12 years.
It was when I first started getting into the coaching industry. I was back in the UK and I was starting a sort of a coaching career in helping others, using coaching to improve sort of performance in individuals. And it was one of the foundational books that I came across, and I read it, and if I'm really honest with you, there were some parts of it at that stage that I didn't truly understand. There were some really good little golden nuggets out of it that I really enjoyed. And then, cut a long story short, I came to the UAE. I started a job in Abu Dhabi and which didn't really inspire me. And I saw an advert for Franklin Covey Middle East.
Okay.
And I applied for it and I got the job.
Wow.
And I don't currently work for Franklin Covey Middle East anymore full time, but I worked for them over 3 years and really got fully exposed to the 7 habit sort of concept. And as you said then, Amita, one of the best ways of learning is teaching to learn, and we use it after each of the habits, and we use it for every little exercise. Teaching to learn is a real key area to sort of digest that, and the fact that I've taught it sort of over 100 times now is why it's there in my sort of unconscious sort of.
You live it,
well,
and you share with us some tips and techniques that we can start applying just like how you do it.
Yeah, I don't think I live the full habits on a daily basis. I'm human, we sort of slip up and go back to some of our sort of different ways, but I try and practice some of the real key areas of that.
Yeah. So I just moved the camera a bit because it'll even cut from there.
Oh, that's much better.
So I'm going to ask you guys who are watching us, have you guys read the book? Please do hands up or make some comment below to share with us how many of you all who's watching this video have read the book, and what is your favorite part of the book. So let's go deeper into 7 habits.
Yeah, sure.
For those people who've not heard anything about the book, Steve is going to go much deeper, and I would recommend you guys take notes for sure in this session. Also, after this live is over, or if you've watched the replay and it's over, share what you've heard from him and what you absorbed with people, with friends and family. Just share it, because that's the way you're going to retain that information, and hopefully for some longer time. It'll not just evaporate in 1 or 2 hours or in 24 hours, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So let's go deeper into introduction of 7 habits.
Sure. So the 7 habits. The 7 habits really started from a book that was published over 25 years ago now by a guy called late Dr. Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey was the founder of Franklin Covey ever since he wrote and published the book over 25 years ago. And what was phenomenal about what he put together in this book was he probably researched over 200 years of reference and literature based around why people are more effective than others. What is it that it makes you different in the world of effectiveness, different to I? And what he found was a pattern. And he found a pattern that sort of the later 150 years, all the success of effectiveness was based around someone's character. So it sort of is based around the sort of real foundational things like courage, humility, and all those sort of great sort of elements of trust, etc. And the sort of the earlier 50 years, people are sort of more focused on sort of that surface area, that personality sort of area. So he was able to correlate all of that research that he did and create a model. And the model really is a foundational, fundamental leadership model. It's so fundamental and so foundational to every single person. But I would say that if you want to start off your leadership journey, there's one great model that we can start off with. Inside that model really are, first of all, 7 habits, which I'll share with you in a moment. But I want you to imagine the 7 habits as a ladder of improving your level of effectiveness. And we start off at the lower level of what we call dependency. And that dependency is where you are dependent on others. So we tend to have a sort of a behavior of sort of a you attitude where, in order for me to be effective, I really need to rely on you to help me and this sort of stuff. And it's not a really good place to be in. And I'm sure, the easiest way to give an example of that is probably children. Children are very dependent on their parents, they're dependent on their siblings and all this sort of stuff. But the level that we all want to get to is, first of all, that sort of independent level. And I guess the independent level is what we all strive for in an organisation. When we join in our organisation, maybe the first week when we're going through some form of induction and finding our way in an organisation. It takes a week or two before you find that independence.
Yeah.
But that's not the highest level of effectiveness. The highest level of effectiveness is what we call interdependency. And interdependency is actually working with others. It's working with others and collaborating with others and creating something better than what you can get on your own. So that is what the 7 Habits model is all about. It's a ladder of effectiveness. And inside, in order to move up that ladder of effectiveness, what we have to do is to practice a number of those habits. So to move from dependent to independent, what we tend to do is focus on the first 3 habits. The first habit then is what we call be proactive. And be proactive is where you use your initiative. And the one thing I like to use about being proactive is you have a choice. You have a choice to take actions. You have a choice to make decisions. Rather than relying on others, and being reactive into everything you do and living by default like a lot of human beings do, it's about taking that initiative, taking that action and doing things. So that's what habit number 1 is.
So that applies to any part of life and business, right?
Like most definitely. You've got to start.
Starting that workout, or starting that cycling, or that swim session, or eating right.
Exactly.
Eating right.
And you have to be proactive in order for the other habits to work. Because, you can't, the reason why it's done in such a sequential order is because they all work in correlation with each other. So you've got to be sort of proactive first of all.
So as entrepreneurs and business owners, we have to be proactive to start taking actions towards our dream ventures that we want to launch.
Most definitely, because there's so much. What happens is when you move into that sort of entrepreneur journey, or that journey of effectiveness or leadership or management or whatever you plan to do, what we can end up doing is doing a lot of research and a lot of reading, a lot of inquiring, but not enough action. Because we sort of get into this trap of fear, fear of failure. And there's actually a bigger psychological word called imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is we don't want to make a go of things because we're going to be judged, we're going to be criticised. And because, so we have this fear of failure, we have this fear of being criticised, we have this fear of being judged. I have a confession to make now that we are live. I fear these live shows as well, by the way. I don't know, everybody thinks it's very, it looks perfect and stuff, but there's a lot that goes inside this. Doing the sessions and coming up with the content, fear of being judged, what people think, so many people are watching, it's going to be shared, what if I fumble, what if I make mistakes? But then again, take action, no matter what people think. Most definitely. So the next habit after that then is so crucial, okay, and it's what we call the begin with the end in mind. So it's about really knowing where you want to be, really knowing what you want to achieve. And that is no easy journey. It's really, really tough. It's one of the toughest habits to actually crack, as I say, because there are a lot of people out there who really don't know where they want to go. When you're in the entrepreneur world or the millennial world, and a lot of millennials these days want to be entrepreneurs, they don't want to have this like big career of being an engineer, being a lawyer, being whatever. They want freedom. They want this freedom. But what is freedom? Is entrepreneurship freedom? I think it's more work. It actually you're working 24/7. You don't sleep if you're an entrepreneur. In the beginning years, at least, it becomes from entrepreneurship to a business. Right? It is. But I think, the easiest way of understanding habit number 2 is about finding your purpose. It's about finding your purpose and finding your meaning. What is it that excites you to get out of bed every day? So I have a question here. Everybody talks about find your purpose, find your meaning. But how do we find our purpose? How do we know what we want? It's really, really hard. It's a tough one. What are the questions we should ask ourselves? I think the first one you've got to ask yourself is really establish what are your true values. And values for clarity here is what motivates you, what excites you, what gets you out of bed every morning. What is it that drives you? What drives your decisions each day? An example of that for most people in life is family would be a high priority value. But then others may not be family as a high priority. There are people that will climb mountains, go kayaking around the world, travel, all these sorts of things. So,
adventure,
you know, their value is adventure and freedom and nature. So sometimes that resonates with those people.
Yeah.
Also at the opportunity of sometimes 50-50 chance of perhaps not surviving some of those pursuits that they take. So it's really about establishing, first of all, what your values are. The second thing that is a really good exercise that you can do in habit number 2 is really identifying what your roles are throughout your day. And what I mean by that is every day we go to work, we may be married, we may be doing different things, we have a job role, we have a friend role, but also we've got to balance out those roles.
Okay.
So an example of that would be you get up in the morning and the kids are downstairs and your wife is still in bed, and you're now in a role of a father, you're doing the kids' breakfast and all these sort of stuff. So aligning yourself with how much time and space are you spending in your dad role. Kids are shipped off to school, there may be a time now where you're sitting and having a coffee with your wife, so your role now is as a husband.
Yeah.
You then go to work, you may be an IT manager, your role now is an IT manager.
Yeah.
You know, on the way home you want to catch up with some of your friends. Yeah, you're a captain of a five-a-side football team, and your role now is the captain of the five-a-side football team.
Yeah.
When you come home, you read the kids a story, they go to sleep, and then you have dinner with your wife, and so on and so on. So a lot of the time is balance of those roles, because we don't think about it. We just do our day, and we don't know how to balance it. So that's a good way of establishing and finding out what your sort of purpose is. And habit number 2 really, and if you ever read the chance to read the book, it always refers to writing your mission statement. And that mission statement is very much like a constitution of your life. It gives you your purpose. And it could be 1 word, 3 words, it could be a collage on your fridge freezer at home.
Do you have a mission statement?
My mission statement changes quite a lot.
So it's okay to change mission statement?
Yes, of course it is, because life circumstances change,
So you keep
your
changing.
values may change, not as much as you want it to change, but things change, and at the moment I'm restructuring what my purpose and mission statement is. I'm going through a process of that, because it's something that you don't go and it happens overnight.
Takes
So
time to work on this.
it really takes time, and it's worth the effort. But when you make the effort to find out what your mission is, what your purpose is, what your true meaning is in life, the rest of it becomes so much easier, because you make your decisions, you make your choices aligned to this mission statement. You're no longer living every day by default. Every choice you make, everything you do is actually focused to the goals of achieving your mission statement.
Yeah.
So that's
habit number 2.
That's habit number 2.
We still have 5 more to go.
Yeah, there is. Well, habit number 3 then is where it allows habit 2 to happen. So imagine now you know what you want to do, and you've got 100 things in order to get to where you want to get to. So habit number 3 is what we call put first things first. So what that basically means is we could have 100 things to do, but it's about prioritizing what you believe are the right things that are going to give you the leverage in order to get there as quick as you can. Not necessarily as quick as you can, because sometimes there may be an organic amount of time that you need in order to get there.
Yeah.
So it's about prioritizing, and again, relating to the book, you'll hear a language of what we call the big rocks. Okay, and our big rocks are those really high important things that no matter if we don't get many things done in our week, let's say, as long as we get these big rocks done that we've selected for that particular week, we will feel quite content.
Yeah.
We will feel really content in what we've achieved. So they're the first 3 habits, and
Time management comes in this habit.
the time management comes in with this. So it's about your weekly planning. It's about daily reflection.
Important, not urgent, but important.
That's right. That's right. And it's about learning a way of. One really thing I love about it as well is about finding a better way of saying no to people, because a lot of the time we end up being reactive to other people's urgencies. An example of that would be at work, where your boss has set you a number of priorities for this particular week, and then we just keep getting overloaded with different things. because they're not your priorities, but they're someone else's priorities. So how do you manage that? How do you have the confidence and assertiveness in order to say no? And a lot of that comes when you really know what your roles are and you really have a mission statement of what you want to achieve. So it really supports and helps that sort of journey.
Okay.
So they're foundational. Those three things are so foundational. In the language of the 7 habits, they are what we call the private victory. They are our private victory, and once we've found those foundations, we can honestly say that we're now managing and leading ourselves. And this is where now you are independent. You can't move into collaboration and synergy and all those other elements unless you've got these right.
Okay.
So they're the first 3 habits.
But independence is also misguiding, no? Some people say I'm independent, I'm not dependent at all. Like I can do this myself. You become cold person, like just because you don't need anybody else anymore. You are self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So that arrogance comes.
Yeah,
also in
it does. But I suppose let's clarify the definition of that. Independent doesn't mean that you've now got this sort of ego and you're now on your own and you make all those choices and you want to go forward.
Yeah.
It's very much like in the world of entrepreneurship, sometimes you're not going to get there on your own. Sometimes you need the support of someone else's strengths. You may have a particular set of strengths that someone else doesn't, and also there may be a situation where you have a number of weaknesses, which is fine. Everybody's okay to have weaknesses, but then what you're doing is optimizing and utilizing someone else's strengths to complement your weaknesses in order for you to move to that higher level of interdependency. And that is so fundamental. So it's about being independent for certain parts of that, but in order to get to the highest level of effectiveness, you're going to end up working with other people. And that's what we call habit number 6.
So only independent people can experience interdependence.
Yes. You've got to be foundational, you've got to be in control of that. You can't get to that highest level and work with others if you can't be proactive, you don't know what your end in mind is, and you can't manage your time and set your priorities. If you can't do any of that, then you're really going to start annoying other people when it comes to collaboration. You know, you're just going to be going through the motions. So it's really making sure that everybody has that right before they can move and work with other people.
Okay.
So we got to the middle of the model now, which is what we call the independent level. Now, obviously, that's the middle of the level of effectiveness. We now want to perhaps move into what we call the highest level of effectiveness, which is the interdependency, and that's where we use the latter habits 4, 5, and 6. So habit 4 really is about the type of attitude that you use in this model, and that is what we call think win-win. Okay, think win-win. I tend to describe think win-win as not a skill, it's actually an attitude and it's a mindset. And that mindset is about when you're working with other people and when you're working with others, it's you always go in with that mindset of win and win, or what I like to say, mutual benefit and mutual respect. Because a lot of people in business go in with a win-lose attitude. And they go in with this sort of,
what's in it for me?
What's in it for me? You know, how am I going to make the most margin? How am I going to make the most sales? How am I going to generate the most revenue? I think those days of business are slowly dissolving and they're over. And as you said earlier on this session was, people buy from people now. It's about relationships, it's about collaboration. And you know, I've seen this so often when I've worked with different clients, and actually they never ever ask, who do you work for? They always want to know, you are going to do this for me, aren't you? You know, it's the people piece, it's the connection. You know, and if you look at the car sales industry, you know, a lot of the time, you know, you can be put off by, you know, they're in there to get in they're too salesy. It's about going in with an attitude. The attitude will only work with a skill, and that skill is habit number 5. And it's called seek first to understand before being understood. Okay? So seek first to understand, then to be understood. So it's about listening. Okay? So it's about using the skill of listening with not only those things that we were gifted with, our ears, but it's listening in what we call listening with empathy, really feeling it from the heart, really feeling it from the gut, and getting into the shoes of the other person and really connecting with that person.
So only then you can think win-win.
Of course you can, of course you can.
Once you understand the person and listen with empathy and understand what pain they are going through, that's when you can think win-win, like how can I benefit you, get you out of this?
Most definitely, because, you know, as I said, win-win is about mutual benefit and mutual respect. If you don't go in there with seek first to understand before being it'd be really, really challenging for you. So it's about using that really listening sort of skills. And one of the things that I remember from that sort of listening sort of area is even Richard Branson, you know, one of his latest books, I can't remember the name of it, he's got a whole chapter called The Dying Art of Listening. You know, massive entrepreneur in the world, you know, very wealthy guy of the Virgin Enterprise, but even in his latest book, you know, he wrote a very powerful chapter on the dying art of listening. So that's the skill. That's the skill of habit number 5. Habit number 4 is the attitude. And what we do is we put those two together, and then we can create habit number 6, which is what we call synergy. And synergy is, well, I don't know, I like to call it sort of chemistry, collaboration, cooperation, working with a team, working together, and working together to get results. And that's really, really important. And that's habit number 6.
And then comes the last one.
The last one is, and again, it's not really the working habit, but it's what makes all the other habits work. And it's sort of encapsulated around the outside of the model. And it's habit number 7, what we call sharpen the saw. And the sharpen the saw is about personal improvement, continuous improvement, looking after yourself from 4 dimensions of, you know, health, looking at it from a spiritual, emotionally, a mind aspect. So it's looking after you as a person. It's about developing good quality relationships. It's about knowing how to eat healthily, managing your stress.
Sharpening the saw.
Sharpening the saw,
learning,
and it's continuous.
Growing.
Just keep growing and growing, and keep developing. It's about lifelong learning and looking after yourself, looking after the engine to keep you sort of going. That's what it's about.
Wow, that's a pretty nice, and you kind of he just summarized the whole book for you now. I
Yeah.
highly recommend read this book. It's an amazing book. I think everybody on this planet must read it, and you know, see whatever comes to you first. Start applying that, because there's so many. Every page in that book usually takes me 1 hour to read one page. I sit and make notes and I think, because when I used to teach the book, the amount of reading and research and studying and how would I share this and thinking of real life examples used to make me basically make the most of the, you know, take the juice from that learning for myself, which is why, like Covey says, learn to teach, teach to learn. It really changes, you basically learn the most when you teach it.
Most definitely, most
so
definitely.
highly recommend reading the book first, and then if possible, whenever you read, whatever you read from the book, share it with other people so you learn it better. So now we understood the habits. So we kind of had a little bit of recap on the book. So how does the 7 habits apply to business and management, and how can it affect the business performance?
I think from a business performance perspective, it's about the individual, really. I think business performance is generally about collective results. It's about working as a team, or working as a corporation, depending on what size we're looking at, corporations or we're looking at SMEs. But collectively, there is an end goal in the world of business, whether it's providing a service, whether it's providing a product. So the 7 habits really contributes towards the people piece, towards focusing on the right things. It's about setting your priorities, because in organisations, or in a small organisations, we can go to work, and we can go to work for 7, 8, 9, 10 hours. And a lot of people have this mindset that if you're in work, then you must be working. But the reality of that is that doesn't happen. The reality is if you was to really look at what people are contributing towards the success of the business, it comes down to the individual. And I think one of the most really critical parts there is applying the 7 habits, or even 1 or 2 of the 7 habits, can contribute towards the success of the business. But what I would say is as much as there's loads of examples of and case studies of implementing 7 habits as a cultural change within an organisation, to get the return of investment on it is really, really challenging, because what I would say is it's one of the variables that add to the success of that business performance. You know, you could even turn around and say, if you don't lose anybody one particular year, if the level of resignation in one small business has dropped,
that's the benefit of the
it program. It could be one of the elements that contributed towards it. It may be individuals are now finding their purpose and meaning at work. It may be now that everybody's speaking the same sort of language.
Yeah.
It may be now that everybody's respecting that, you know, when you're working on important things, you've really worked out what your priorities are.
Yeah.
And that stops people feeling frustrated at work. Because one of the biggest reasons why people feel frustrated at work is, first of all, they don't know what they're focusing on, they don't know what their priorities are, and probably one of the major things is toxic relationships. And people leave when they can't fix relationships. And you know, if you look at habits 4, 5, and 6, you know, especially the attitude of 4 and the and listening better, they can make a real difference to relationships.
I think this 4, 5, 6 applies so much to people who are working for a job, like who have employers and bosses. And there are so many programs and coaches now I see you know, flourishing on Facebook and social media, where they teach you how to handle your boss, how to all these things. Basically, I think if you just apply the core concept of the habits, like think win-win, think win for you and for your boss, and think seek to understand, then to be understood for the customers or to the employers as well, it will solve most of the problems, because you won't put yourself first. You will first think, why are they doing what they are doing?
Yeah, sure.
And then, you know, apply. Once you understand, like, at the conscious level, all of us are good people.
Yeah, of
everybody,
course.
all
Definitely.
humanity, we are good people. We don't want to wish bad or feel bad for anybody, right? So once you understand this, once you listen with the empathy and understand the reason why someone is behaving in the way they are behaving, it will be easier for us to understand how to act.
Most definitely, most definitely.
So response.
Yeah, it's about how you respond.
Response.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You were going to share a story on stimulus and response.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to sort of habit number 1, you know, the key thing is we can be very reactive to something that annoys us, something that frustrates us.
Yeah.
You know, a great example here in Dubai is perhaps road rage. You know, we're out on you know, the highway. You know, you've got someone, you can see someone flashing their lights, okay, up behind you, big Land Cruiser. What happens when you're under that type of pressure? You know, your brain is not working correctly, because you have something internal in your brain called the amygdala, and the amygdala is your fight-flight part of the brain. And what happens is we then become very reactive in that scenario. We're very reactive to what we call a stimulus, and that's something that creates emotion in our body. So imagine now we're driving down a motorway and someone's flashing their lights behind us to get out of the way. That's going to create emotion of, oh my God, you know, he's going to nudge me, he's going to push me out of the way. So what you would end up doing, if you're not able to control your emotions, is you will end up not doing the right things in order for you to safely maneuver over into the road to get him out of the way. And one of the main causes of accidents in the UAE is not checking blind spots and not checking mirrors. And a lot of that is because of the pressure and the bullying on the roads.
Absolutely.
So stimulus and response is about your choice. It's about calming yourself down. It's about controlling your emotional intelligence before you make a decision. And a lot of it is based on a rapid way of understanding how you feel, looking at the consequences of the choice that you're going to make, and then making it when it's slowly sort of appropriate. So if you put that back into the workplace, if you put that into relationships, when you hear feedback from someone in a workplace that you don't like, you can now create or you can jeopardize that relationship by being aggressive in your reaction to that. rather than sort of taking what I call that physical or mentally step back, or take a walk away for a couple of minutes to control the situation, and then go back forward to something more deliberate.
So you think of the consequences that you will get from the response before you actually respond.
Yeah, it is. And I think the best way is to put a metaphor to this. And the best way of putting the metaphor is, imagine now a can of Coca-Cola against a can of bottled still water. So imagine now you're getting sort of frustrated. Imagine inside now you're shaking up and down, and you've sort of got this Coca-Cola or this bottle of water, and it's shaking up and down in your body, and you're getting frustrated and you're getting annoyed. Yeah. Are you that person that when you've been shaken around and you've been distracted, you've been whatever, you open it up and you now carbonate and explode? Or are you the person that is able to control the situation by opening up the water and nothing happens, and you're just in control of it? You've got control of your own emotional intelligence, and you're able to deal with it better. Because what happens is you're not able to control and you carbonate. The amygdala, the fight-flight part of the brain, will actually send out adrenaline and all sorts of stress hormones, which allows the cognitive part of the brain to not work better, and unfortunately you won't make the right decisions. And cortisol, once you release cortisol in those stressful situations, you're not able to control that stimulus, you're not able to respond. Cortisol stays in the brain for up to 26 hours. So if we can mitigate about all those cortisol, all those stress hormones and adrenaline going in the brain, we can make our real cognitive part of the brain work much better and get better results for our business.
Feel better, performance will be better.
Much better.
I think it will impact these days the way people are stressed about everything.
Yeah. Even outside of business, in personal relationships. One of the success stories I heard 5 years, I think it was the second or third workshop I delivered in the UAE. And it was one person that went on a 7 Habits program who was going through a particular challenging divorce, and actually completing the 7 Habits changed everything for him. He was really aware of habit number 5, seek first to understand before being understood. He was thinking about this win-win attitude, and actually he was able to reform his relationship with his wife and make a success and be even more happier. So it's not just business, it's in your personal life as well.
It applies in all aspects.
It applies in all aspects.
Every relationship, including friends, including siblings, including children. I mean, it's really, I don't really live all the habits, but whenever situations happen in my life, I do think about these different, structure that the book gives. How should I think? Let's listen with empathy. Let's hear what the other side is feeling, and why is he behaving like this, or why is she behaving like this, And I've also shared this book with so many of my friends and colleagues and everybody, and everybody seems to have seen a lot of value and saved their future their present relationships with the book. So let's hear some real-time examples or experiences and how it has kind of changes it has shown in workforces. We can start with a small 1 to 2 people or 5 people business.
I think, without naming any companies, I think a lot of the time is if you're a small business, I think there's a better success in that business if both of you, or 3 of you, or 4 of you, or 5 of you sort of practice these sort of 7 habits. So I think the success of the 7 habits in the world of entrepreneurship can be really, really great. Yeah. But I've worked with a lot of corporations. I've worked with huge companies, and what I would suggest that I've also what I think it adds value in big organisations is it helps individuals better in their professional role at work. Yeah. I think from a bigger perspective, when you're working with companies of 20,000 sort of people, it would have to be a real huge investment in order to create that sort of different culture. Yeah. And again, there'd be too many different paradigms and perceptions in order to do that. But I've worked with some senior leadership teams that were just not aligned and becoming very silo in their sort of attitude. It was like they were working for their own individual businesses when they all had a sort of common goal. So I've worked with teams like that. And again, most of the time, I work with individuals and smaller teams, but that's not to say some of the bigger companies utilize that as well.
Yeah, so like how I introduce this concept to my team, I will share. I read a lot. Like every day I would read about 2 hours in the morning or during the day. I consume a lot of content. And I read mostly about marketing, spirituality, and all these different subjects. I read a lot about psychology because I'm into marketing. So a lot of psychology applies in making people take action, click a button, or lead them towards actions and whatever goals we have in our marketing campaigns. So it makes me read psychology books and all.
Sure.
So whatever I read, I would come to the office first thing in the morning or during our break time, and I would just share with my team.
Fantastic.
When I was going through the phase of 7 habits, I would just, because I was studying the book and I started the meetup to teach the book. So I would just study the chapter that I'm supposed to teach in my meetup, and I would just share. Today I read this and this happened and the book is saying this, and I would share the stories the book shares. And my team would listen to that and they'll be intrigued. And what I did was I had my sessions, my teaching sessions within my office during the working hours.
Okay.
So usually we close by 6. So 5 to 6 would be my 7 habits class.
Okay.
So if they want to, they're free. There's no force because you cannot really force people.
No.
If you kind of impose something or learning on anybody, it's not going to. I can't learn when you impose something
That's
on
a
me.
choice.
It has to be my will.
Sure.
And when you learn with your own will and choice, you are more open to learning versus just hearing and forgetting about it. So I would keep those sessions at that time in the meeting room, so they are happy to, they can join anytime they want. Usually by that hour you're tired, you're ready for the, to get the day over with and go home. So 99% they will come and sit in the session, and people like yourself, Arvind, there are all these other people who would join the session and talk about all these different concepts and examples and stories. I started seeing my team was more regular than me, so much so that they started teaching the book as well. And they started learning on how to apply the concepts in their personal life. They must be going through different ups and downs in their personal life, and started using the concepts of the book in their life and seeing changes, positive changes in their lives as well. And that's how the book became that's how actually we build a small little culture. We're a small team. I don't believe in having huge teams and working with smart people in smaller teams. There are about 12 in our team, and in the Dubai office we would just then start reading the book and sharing the concept. We started building a team culture. All of us follow the similar values and similar, so the trust between each other increased.
Oh, fantastic.
Because of sharing the concept and knowing that we're all thinking on the same grounds. I don't know if it's making sense.
Yeah, sure.
That's how it basically.
I mean, that's got to be the best way of changing. Remember, we're talking about habits here, and habits are, doing something from an unconscious perspective. And changing those habits. There's lots of research out there, and people say 21 days, 90 days, 60 days, but I think it's down to the individual. But you are doing the right thing about this. The best way of changing any habit is actually applying it, talking about it, sharing about it, living it and teaching it.
Otherwise just sharing something like you should do this, it doesn't really work.
No.
You have to do it, show it to impact or influence. Like Covey says in the book, to influence, be influential.
Definitely.
I can sit and start teaching the book again.
No, that's great.
It's your session.
That's the best way.
I know. So it applies to the growth of the business and of course for personal life as well. So what is the common resistance people and businesses face when trying to adopt this mindset?
I think straight away, the most common resistance for businesses and individuals is the discipline aspect of it. Not all of the habits. I mean, you're not going to magically read the book and then be able to practice these 7 habits every single day. You're not going to be every habit every day. It's about picking and choosing 1 or 2 of the habits that you feel that's really necessary, and that's probably the best way to do that. So I would say the resistance, if you're trying to change a culture within an organization or trying to change someone's mindset, really is, first of all, the discipline, and also remembering that every single individual has a different paradigm. And a paradigm is your outlook to life, because the world is not how it is, it's how we see it. So the fact that every single human being has a different paradigm, it's really hard to align all of those paradigms together and making sure that we all live that. So I think the resistance would be different perceptions, different thoughts, and being laziness, procrastination, other stuff taken over. But
Life comes up.
you know, stuff that comes up. But that's up to you. You know, it's up to you. And again, once you've really focused on what your purpose, what your meaning is, you will be able to make those decisions easier. You'll be able to say no more. You'll be able to stick to that routine. But we're all human, and us humans sometimes slip back to something that's easier and comfortable sometimes.
So how did you adopt? Share with us, what do you do? What kind of things you do in your daily
Wow.
life and adopt the practices? We would love to hear that.
I personally have a number of rituals that I do, something very, very similar to you. So one of the key things for me is my planning. It's making sure that aligned with habit number 3, which is put first things first, one of the key best parts of habit number 3 is spending 30 minutes a week planning your week. So planning the 7 days, and we keep it down to a week.
Okay.
That's not to say that you can't plan for an appointment like, you know, in September or in December or whatever. But the foresight of a week is a very comfortable measure of stuff that you can do. So one of the key things is on a Sunday, I will sit down and put myself on that personal meeting between 30 and 45 minutes, where I take all of my thoughts from my personal tasks and my business tasks down on a piece of paper. So I just get it out of my head onto paper. I then convert, and what I tend to do then is I prioritise that list. So I call that my master task list. I then prioritise that master task list. I also do something else which actually is not in the book, and I do something what I call guesstimate. I guesstimate how long each of those tasks are going to take.
Okay.
So I look at it and think, oh, I need to speak to someone, I need to do that, that's half a day.
Yeah.
That's going to take 20 minutes. That's going to take 30 minutes. That helps me then schedule those tasks.
Yeah.
So I then schedule them, because I have this saying, you know, if it doesn't get scheduled, it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
And then sometimes there are one or two things there that I know that are going to probably take less than 30 minutes. So I may not schedule them. I may just assign them to a day that when I feel there's a bit of space in my day, when I feel slightly motivated, I'll just get those done for that different day.
Okay.
So my scheduling is really, really important. One of the other things I really do a lot of, which again, don't quote me that I do this every single day, and that's my daily journaling, daily reflection. So what I do is I close out my day. So let's imagine that I want to finish my work at 6 p.m. Okay, whatever project I am working on that particular hour, I will stop it at about 5:45.
Okay.
And at 5:45 for 15 minutes, I will just close out my day. I will write down some notes about my day, so I reflect back on those 9-10 hours of what I've just done. And I use OneNote. I use a OneNote or whatever software.
It's a mobile app.
It's a mobile app, it's Microsoft app, or you can use Evernote by Apple,
Okay.
or you can use a notebook and pen, you can use your default notes thing, anything you want to do. But I like to have my daily notes somewhere where I know I can get to it. And what I've always got on me is my phone. So I can get to it on my phone.
Yeah.
I don't always have my notebook, but I know I will always have my phone. So what I do is I ask myself a couple of questions. What was good about it?
Okay.
What was bad about today? And also, what did I learn? You know, what relationships did I discover today? And those sorts of things. So I now keep a record of that. And something what I've just done last week is I did a sort of middle of the year review of all of those notes over the year, and I've put them on one file now. So I can just quickly go back and have a look at those things. So they're all your golden sort of nuggets of the day.
What good happened today? What else?
What was good today?
Yeah.
You know, so give yourself a bit of gratitude, give yourself a bit of, you know, well done.
Okay.
That's really important for your motivation. What didn't go so well today? What was,
Okay.
you know, really annoying? What was frustrating? What didn't go so well?
Okay.
I also put, what did I learn today? What have I learned new? What article did I discover? What is the new subject?
I read 20-30 articles and then I write all that. Or I write the main one which impacted me the most.
Yes, and that's what you've got to do, because otherwise you're overloading yourself with too much information.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, you know, people say to yourself, is your glass half full or half empty? But what you're getting into the trap of is something that I got into the trap of, is information overload. What you've got to do is pour some of that water out of that glass to allow the assimilation of some of that information, because you will overload yourself. And it's one of the worst traits of entrepreneurship. We want to find out what is the latest, what is this, what are they doing, what are they doing. Overloading all the information, and you won't remember it. The brain cannot contain that amount of information. You won't be able to do that. I've made that mistake. So it's about really contextualizing what is the most foundational thing that you've done. And what I sort of relate to that is I read a lot as well. But what I do is when I read and when I finish my book, I have a file, I have another book. And I do a one-page mind map of what I've summarized of the 3 key things that I am taking away from that book. So when I want to go back to that book for reference, whether I want to turn it into something, whether I want to use it for a client, whether I want to use it as a new piece of my information, I can just look at that book on a one-page mind map, and all of that book comes back to me very quickly.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but it's something that I've been doing for the last 18 months, and I found it's one of the most powerful things that I've done.
Yeah, and I feel this actually, because the amount of content I'm reading, what I started doing was I was listening to this podcast, whatever podcast is very impactful for me, and I would make notes of that.
Sure.
And then I tried this once, and it was helpful actually, because otherwise sometimes what I do is I go back and read again if I want to kind of recollect what was some. Because
you're anxious, because you feel you haven't absorbed enough.
So like maybe one concept I didn't understand properly, let's go and hear it again, and then I have to hear the whole thing again. So actually I should do this more now.
But don't be too hard on yourself. There's no human being that's able to absorb every single thing in that book. Or I always say to yourself, take away 2 or 3 key points. And then maybe buy another book that's related to that particular subject, and then take away 2 or 3 things from there, and then buy another book or listen to a podcast similar to that subject. And that's how you become an expert at one particular area.
So when I was reading the 7 Habits, I would actually listen it on my Audible. Now, on the Audible, Mr. Covey himself is talking about the book or narrating the book. But when I started reading the book, I started seeing different things which I would not hear of him. So it's every time, especially the 7 Habits book in particular, or some other very influential books, every time I read them or hear them, I understand some new concept, which my brain didn't really. Maybe at that time, the need for that concept was not there. They say, when your brain, when you need something in life, then you start seeing and hearing those stuff. That's what you grasp from whatever content it comes to you. Okay, so one habit that is most important for entrepreneurs and business owners, according to you.
One habit.
Must be followed by.
Must. I would definitely say habit number 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Yeah, this is critical. This is critical in business. This is critical before any sort of product launch, whether it's a service product, whether it's a physical product. If you don't really understand the needs of your client, then you're not going to provide the right service. And it's very, very important as well, because sometimes your client may not also know what they really want. So they may have an assumption of what they think they want. So by truly really understanding what is their pain or what is their problem, you can now provide the right solution, the right thing for the client. And that is going to expand your relationship. Because rather than just give them something off the shelf that you think's okay, I'm going to get a sale here, they're going to buy this, but I know that the conversion of the service that I'm going to provide them is going to be not really provide them the right thing. Again, it's about repeat business again, isn't it? If you really listen to the customer, if you really listen to your client, they won't go anywhere else. And that's really, really important.
I highly believe in this concept. I mean, any business, absolutely any business on this planet will thrive only if you have repeat business. And when I was struggling in my early years, when I would be hard selling, because I never learned selling, you just go out and sell. I'm trying to make a sale and trying to convince someone to buy my product or my service, whatever I would do. It's only when I got into Ramez, Ramez, hello? He's come on one of my sessions. You guys can go back on the page and see the talk we had with Ramez, hello. He's a sales coach and runs this academy for sales excellence.
Yeah.
So he explained me the concept of, in his own way, in his whatever structure, but that's exactly what, hear the customer, understand what you want. Don't try to oversell. Start small. And as I started applying these concepts, like even now when we have consultation clients or lead generation clients, we don't sell you all our services. Let's start small. Let's start 1 month. Let's do 3 months. We understand, we see if we like working with you, if we are able to produce results for you, then we sign up for a year. Otherwise, maybe we just call it quits. So thinking of value, thinking of how you can benefit them, because when they make money, we make money.
Sure.
When your client is happy, is always getting the service that he wanted, he would never leave you, ever.
No, don't look for the quick win. Go for that longevity.
Absolutely.
Go for something
Be
for
honest,
further on.
be authentic. And I think a lot of the concepts, when you read books like this or when you consume such content, you kind of consciously, we are all authentic people, right? So it's just you become stronger in your value system, and your authenticity comes across much more in your work and your personal life when you kind of are exposed to such material.
Most definitely.
And people.
Yeah, I mean, you go down to a local souk or a local market or a car salesman. As soon as I lose that sort of authentic person in that individual, it puts me off. It puts me off straight away. They've just lost a sale. I've walked out of shops, walked out of where I'm just about to buy something of high value, and actually the person that I'm working with just doesn't connect to me. I don't have that rapport with that person because I can just see them just going for that hard sale.
Yeah.
And I know that person's not going to sort of take care of any aftercare or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's really important.
And we consciously also, our gut is as human beings, you know it when someone is authentic and someone not.
Of course you do. Of course you do. You're able to read that with experience.
Yeah. So some actionable steps that we all can take, some step-by-step processes or exercises for mind opening, perhaps.
Yeah, sure. I think we've covered quite a lot here today with sort of the daily journaling and sort of your time management and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I think if we look at some daily, I think if we go back to the stimulus and response, your own sort of proactiveness of how you respond to those things that are going to hurt you, those frustrating things. I think consciously before you act on certain things, what I do is mentally take a step back or physically take a step back, physically walk away before you respond, calm yourself down, and then your cognitive thinking part of the brain will work so much better for you. A pretty good analogy that we haven't really sort of covered here is in the book you will hear Stephen talk about carry your own weather. Okay, and carry your own weather is a great positive affirmation that I like to share with people. It's very much about, when you're having a beautiful, sunny, great weather day, which is a bit challenging here in this weather. We
a couple of more months.
Yeah, a couple more months before the winter months. But when it's a really good day, a nice sunny day, the air's nice and clear, all the endorphins are released in your body and all that sort of stuff. So when you're having a really challenging day and you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling annoyed, I share to people, say, well, carry your own weather. Carry your own weather is a great positive affirmation that you can change the state of your body. It can change your physical state, your mental state, in order for you to sort of react in a great way. So that's sort of attached to habit number one. One of the other models that's really important in habit number one is what we call the circle of influence. So imagine now two circles. We've got a small circle, and then we've got a circle around the outside. The circle in the middle we call the circle of influence. Around the outside is what we call the circle of concern. A lot of people waste a lot of time and a lot of energy focusing on things, focusing on problems that they haven't got any real, true influence over.
For example?
Complaining about the weather. I
can't do much with Dubai's weather.
Yeah, it is. So move away, go indoors. There's nothing you can do. Or travel somewhere. Move out of here.
I influence my feeling about the weather.
Yeah, so it's about focusing on stuff that you have to do throughout the day that you can add value, you can influence, you can make change to. Not always being asked to do something. Being proactive and thinking about a request that's been asked by you, and maybe asking, well, why have they asked that? Is there something else that they're going to do with this? You know, if someone asks you to do, like, let's say a presentation, put together or some research, some figures or something, whatever, you think, well, what do they want this for? Maybe do a little bit of analysis, maybe put it together on a presentation, maybe think ahead. Do things that you can influence, and you'll find that your energy will be much more balanced rather than focusing on things that you need to know a little bit about, but actually you're never going to influence that change, you're never going to have control of it, so why waste your time? Yeah. So they're around habit number 1. I think one of the sort of the key things I would share with people then is very much about this routine of your time management. I think just to create some clarity here that the audience can do and what they can share, I would encourage all of you to just once a week sit down, put yourself on a personal meeting and just get all those thoughts of those things that you need to do from a personal perspective and a business perspective. Just get them down on a piece of paper. Okay. That is now your master task list for the next 7 days.
So we plan, what am I going to do next?
What are you going to do? So for example then, you may sit down and think, I need to go to this meeting. I need to go and change the tyres on my car. I need to link up with my friend. Yeah. I need to finish this report. I need to go and see the optician. So you just get everything down on a sheet of paper. Okay. Then from there, work out which is the high priority. What are the 1 or 2 things that must be done that week? Okay, and in the language of the 7 habits, we call those the big rocks. Yeah. Okay, and those big rocks may also be attached to your role. So what I mean by that is they may be attached to your role as a father. They may be attached to your role as a husband, wife. They may be attached to your role as a manager. So again, it's about balancing that sort of thing. Then schedule them. Once you schedule them, what I always say to people is if you work, let's say, 9 to 5, make sure you don't schedule your whole day so you're back to back on tasks and meetings. I would suggest that you schedule about 65% of things that you need to do.
And the rest leave them.
And the rest leave, I call that the white space. Leave some white space. Leave the white space for those important and urgent things that come unexpectedly. Okay, which again, if you get a chance to read the book, they are what we call quadrant number 1. They are urgent, they are important, they need to be done now. We can't plan for them. So we need to create a little bit of space for that. Okay. And then the other thing that I would really do now is the fact that we are so overwhelmed by tasks, priorities, information, social media. At the end of the day, you're going to forget what you did even in the morning. You're going to forget where you went for lunch. You're going to forget everything. So it's good to reflect. It's good to do some reflection. It's good to do some daily journaling. And again, it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. If you make it overcomplicated, you won't do it. Yeah. You won't get into the discipline of doing it. I just put some bullet points and I just put them down there and then just leave it and close it. Yeah. So I just dump some thoughts of what I've done, what I've achieved, that I feel that I don't want to forget. Those are the things that I don't want to forget. And I just put them down. And I think that's really, really important. So rather than overwhelm everybody in the audience today, I think focus on your own emotional intelligence. Take that step back, walk away, think about it, and then think about, from the time management perspective, at least 30 minutes a week, planning your week, and then each day, just closing out your day, a little bit of daily journaling, a bit of daily reflection, and you will be slightly and better in more control of what you do each week. And when you say more controlled, once we know what our goals are, and what we know what our meaning is, everything you do in the week are going to contribute towards the success of your goals.
Yeah. I highly recommend everybody reads the book to understand all the things that Steve has shared with us, and then applying, of course, the planning mechanism as first part to start implementing stuff. I think in that planning, all your habits will sort of come in, because in your planning you will plan, suppose you're planning to start something or learn something, so you'll be proactive to plan it and put the things which are important now. So I think all the habits automatically fall into place with this one exercise itself.
They will.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. That's a great tip. I see some messages coming on the page. So let's see, what do we have? Who do we have here? We have
I think Marcin there was putting a few
I have
things.
read it. Manikandan, fantastic. Manikandan Sadhwani says, my favorite habits is number 2. Fantastic. Yes. Okay. Who else do we have? Marcin says, would you mind sharing your mission statement? Even though I fully understand the benefits from having one, I struggle to articulate my own one and write it down.
Yeah, that's going to be a real tough one. But I think if we go back to what we shared with there, is really understanding what your values are. Mm-hmm. You know, even going online, there's a couple of values. If you just put in Google values exercise or whatever, find out what your values are, find out what's really, really important to you. Look at your aspirations that you want to achieve in your career, in your goals. Put all that together and then come up with a sort of a plan. You know, it doesn't have to look anything fancy. It could be a poem, it could be 3 words, it could be pictures. If you're not a very good writer, think about putting pictures. Mm-hmm. You know, people do them storyboarding. Some people will have...
So having a mission statement on a storyboard, how will that look like?
Basically what you would have is maybe some pictures of some of the things you want to achieve in your life. You know, someone who wants to be wealthy, let's say, you would have, you know, a picture of a Ferrari or a big house or whatever, and, you know, it sort of creates those incentives that each day that you see this storyboard, it keeps you focused. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole thing of a mission statement. Mm-hmm. It's keeping you focused and keeping you aligned to what you want to achieve.
Okay, that's his next question actually. He's saying, may I ask, what are the top values you defined for yourself?
Wow, I mean...
He wants to dig deep into Steve.
Yeah, it does. I'll give you one value, and that's serving others. You know, to see, when I coach and work with other people, to see the insights come out of their minds and that sort of glow in their faces, mm-hmm. once they've found that solution or found that idea, that's really important to me. So serving others is really important.
Serving others is one of your important values.
One of my really important values,
Which is why you're in the field of training and helping.
Exactly.
Okay, let's see. What else do we have? Marcin says, Namita, I love your passion and your energy level. Thanks for organizing this enriching event. Thank you so much, Marcin. I promise these kind words give so much energy and so much power to keep doing more of this. Let's see, who else do we have? I love the daily journal idea, Marcin says again. What went well, what didn't go well, and what did I learn? Help to remember and celebrate all the small wins. That is so well said. Okay, I think that's about it.
Awesome. So Steve, how can our audience, how can we find you? Where can we find you? Do you have a website? How do we work with you?
Yeah, sure. At the moment, I'm going for sort of a redesign of what I'm focusing on with. So, my current website is sort of closed down at the moment. Mm-hmm. I'm working on some different things. I do have a Facebook page. Mine is Steve Jeffrey 70. Mm-hmm. So at Steve Jeffrey 70, you can find me there, mm-hmm. or you can find me or email me at stevejeffrey70@gmail.com.
That gives us your age. You know that, right?
Really? I don't, it could be anything. 70 may be a good year.
Okay, I believe you. Okay, all right. I hope all of you guys found some value in today's session. There was so much good nuggets, so many tips, so many tricks Steve shared with us. And this is one of my favorite subjects. And every time I hear about the book or meet Steve or do the sessions, I always learn something new. And it really impacts the way I lead my life, professionally as well as personally. I wanted to share with all of you that we've launched our academy. It's a digital marketing academy online. You can find this on abovedigital.com/academy, and we sell digital marketing courses. So if you're a budding entrepreneur, need some help, want to do things yourself, we have step-by-step processes and systems which guide you on how to set up lead magnets on your website, how to come up with offers and everything. So visit our website abovedigital.com/academy to learn more about our courses. I hope you enjoyed the session today. I would love to hear your feedback in the comments below. Also, please do like it, share it, love it. I mean, your feedback gives it basically gives us the power and energy to keep doing this and basically keep giving us the power to keep going.
Yeah, definitely.
So just these likes and loves, it just shows us that you enjoyed it. What you heard made sense to you. We are going on the right track. So this is just to keep us motivated as well. It will help. I hope you guys are having a lovely week. Wish you all the best for the coming week. And I'll see you next Monday with yet another guest. Until then, have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.